Well, we have a problem this morning. We have been anchored for 5 days, and one of the reasons...
I'm closing the gas.
Okay. And one of the reasons that we have been anchored for 5 days is because our anchor windlass would not turn off when we dropped the anchor. And if you have ever watched your anchor chain spool out uncontrollably, it's scary. But it was okay because we got to hang out on the Reboot for 5 days, which is the longest time we have ever spent on the boat, out at anchorage, not at the dock, not being plugged in, figuring out which systems work and which systems don't work, how much power we use, whether the solar panels can keep up, and the quick answer is no, and we're going to need to get some new solar panels. I don't like running the engine just to charge up the batteries because I feel like that's a really expensive way to get energy. I'm fine with it charging up the batteries if we're like going from one place to another, but we've just been in one place for the past 5 days and we've enjoyed it. It's a nature preserve and we have gotten to paddleboard every day and the weather's been perfect and it's been relaxing, but now we are headed home and we have to figure out what we're gonna do about the windlass. We did some troubleshooting and one thing we know is it's not the remote control because there's a couple things you can do with the windlass. We have a Hector Quick windlass and we have a big breaker on it, and every time we turn on the breaker, windlass runs. And it runs on the out direction. We have the schematics for the windlass, and when we trace the schematics and we pull the fuse for the remote control to see if the remote control is what's shorting, the windlass still runs when we flip the breaker back. So we know that it's a solenoid in the windlass. Now the question is, how do we pull up the anchor when you can't use your windlass? And it's a big anchor. It's a Rockna 25 kilogram anchor, and it's just the two of us. We are gonna have to figure out how to get that anchor up. Before we start futzing with the anchor, we are doing our morning checks of the engines, making sure the engines are ready to go. We're gonna have the engine running while we start working on the anchor hauling up, which is what we normally do anyway. The conditions are not optimal for pulling up the anchor. We've got the wind coming directly from the north and it's blowing us back that way, and the deeper water is that way. If we go 50 feet in that direction, we could run aground while we're pulling up the anchor and the anchor is not attached to the ground. We do have a sailboat behind us, so we have to be mindful of that as well. We don't want to blow back into them. Having the engines running and ready to help us maneuver while we pull up the anchor is something we would do normally, even though both of us might be at the front pulling the anchor up because it's probably going to be a two-person job. See you out there.